Bad luck ain't got me so far, and I won't let it stop me now. The dogs begin to bark all over my neighborhood, and that ain't all. Dogs begin to bark all over my neighborhood. This is a mean old world to live in, and I can't face it all by myself. You know.
Welcome to Every Friday with Dan and Olivia. I'm Dan Miles.
I'm Olivia Dalbo.
So my topic today, and the opening song was a subtle tip-off, is superstition. I was actually planning to do this one on Friday the 13th, but we were on our hiatus for the last Friday the 13th of this year. So rather than wait till next year, I thought I would just do it now. Olivia picked a Rod Stewart tune when she was tributing her dad, and then I'd already known I was going to play a Rod Stewart vocal too, so that's interesting. But I want to talk about the origins of superstition and the line between when superstitions are harmless and harmful, beginning with the number 13. You know, having a negative association with number 13 is something we're taught by our particular culture. And for some reason, it runs so deep in many of us that a lot of buildings refuse to have a 13th floor because they don't think anyone will want to be a tenant on it. I want to be in suite 13, you know.
Yeah.
So in a lot of buildings, you see the floor above the 12th floor called the 14th floor, which to me is just denial. I mean, you know, if the floor underneath you is the 12th floor, you're on the 13th floor. I don't care what you call it. I learned that in 1911, a word was coined for the fear of the number 13, triskaidekaphobia. Why it was called triskaidekaphobia, I couldn't say. But even as far back in 1911, someone felt the need to make a word for it. There are various theories regarding the origin of that bias. One of the most prevalent is based on the Last Supper, where Jesus and his 12 disciples totaled 13, one of whom was his betrayer, Judas Iscariot. But in Italy, 13 is considered a lucky number, and 17 is considered unlucky. And in many Asian countries, they fear the number 4. You know, to the extent that, you know, all the construction companies and phone makers try and minimize the presence of the number 4. So to me, that sort of underscores the arbitrary kind of nature of it. So that's number 13. Let's talk about the Scottish play, a.k.a. the Bard's play, a.k.a. Macbeth. There's a superstition in the theater world called the Scottish curse that says speaking the name Macbeth inside a theater will cause disaster. You're also not supposed to quote from it inside a theater unless you're actually rehearsing or performing it. Those who believe in the curse claim that real spells are cast in the Three Witches scene. Actors who do not believe in the superstition will sometimes abstain out of politeness to those who do. Productions of Macbeth are said to have been plagued with accidents. According to legend, I'm reading from something I've pulled. This is me speaking naturally. You can tell I'm being scholarly here. I'll put it in their words rather than mine. But according to legend, this dates back to the premiere of the play, when an actor died because a real dagger was mistakenly used instead of a prop. The play does include more fight scenes and other such opportunities for accidents than the average play. And the atmosphere in the backstage area of the old-fashioned theaters was sort of a prime setting for disasters. Potentially dangerous equipment. So that might explain why there were accidents without invoking magic. But the popularity of the superstition might also be related to a mild hazing aspect. Veteran actors might relate a tale of woe that they witnessed personally due to someone invoking the curse, lending credibility and immediacy to it. It makes me sort of think, too, of like the pyramids and the curses.
Yeah.
One hypothesis for the origin of the superstition is that Macbeth, being a popular play, was commonly put on by theaters in financial trouble, or that the high production costs of Macbeth put theaters in financial trouble. And in association with the production of Macbeth meant a theater was going out of business. But according to an actor, Sir Donald Sinden, apparently, contrary to popular myth, Shakespeare's tragedy Macbeth is not the unluckiest play as superstition likes to portray it. It's exactly the opposite. The origin of the unfortunate moniker dates back to repertory theater days when each town and village had at least one theater to entertain the public, and if a play was not doing well, it would invariably get pulled and replaced with a surefire audience pleaser, and Macbeth guaranteed full houses. So in the weekly theater newspaper, The Stage was published listing what was on in each theater in the country. It was instantly noticed that shows that had not worked the previous week, they were always replaced by a crowd pleaser. And many actors have died during, more actors, I should say, have died during performances of Hamlet.
Really?
Than the Scottish play, as the profession still calls it. It is forbidden to quote from it backstage, as this could cause the current play to collapse and have to be replaced. In other words, if you're doing a different show and people backstage are talking Macbeth, shut up, or we're going to be Macbeth.
Yeah.
According to the superstition, Shakespeare got a few of the lines from an actual coven of witches. And when they saw the play, they were greatly offended and cursed the play. Another tradition tells that the original prop master could not find a suitable pot or cauldron and stole one from a coven, who then cursed the play in revenge for the theft. It's believed that breaking the taboo calls the ghosts of the three witches to the show, and they caused the mishaps. And last, and probably most spectacular view of the curse is that Shakespeare used the curse in the play to actually curse the play himself, guaranteeing that no one other than himself would ever be able to direct the play. It's also reported that when Shakespeare learned that James I, whose Scottish heritage he was trying to celebrate with the play, had not particularly enjoyed it, he became bitterly disappointed and would only refer to the play as that Scottish play for the rest of his life. I've got a little more on that, but knowing you're a theater person and an English person, you must have some knowledge and experience of this superstition. And what is your take on it? And of course, we've heard from Tom at Later. He's done some Shakespeare productions too, and I haven't. So I have some other superstitions in mind, but what's your feeling about this?
About superstition in general, or superstition in theatre?
Superstition in general, but also the particular one. And do you believe that if you say Macbeth out loud, someone will drop dead, or do you think it's silly, or do you think, what's your take on it?
It's kind of a double-edged sword. I mean, you do want to kind of respect the rules and regulations, and I think, I guess there's a reason why certain people, I know that they're more adamant about just not mentioning it at all in my country, where I come from.
Well, I just wonder, I always thought there was kind of an element of fun to it. Like,
I think
the Scottish play, like wink.
It's a little bit, it's kind of like
tradition.
Tradition, and it sort of brings up those kind of, that Halloween sort of, feeling, with the headed horseman and all of that thing. It's sort of something you can have fun with, and I think as long as you keep it lighthearted and kind of fun and not sort of like, oh my God, if you really that. And there are some people that say, oh no, you mustn't. Yes. You absolutely mustn't mention it.
This is my point between harmless and harmful. I mean, a group of actors who say, oh, Scottish play, don't say Macbeth, and then somebody else goes, you said Macbeth, oh my God, and they
I think for some reason the film that comes to mind in within all of what you're mentioning is Tom Courtenay and The Dresser and Albert Finney. I mean, that's the kind of atmosphere that I think about that is relatable the most to this particular superstition, and how seriously, I mean, they're doing a play in Manchester, for Christ's sake, you know what I mean, in The Dresser. It's great, but it's still English theatre. It's still, Albert Finney is, the story of The Dresser. It's amazing. It's a classic. But there's this devout religion behind the rules and regulations of English theatre at the Old Vic and certain places there. What's my take on that? I think you need to uphold and respect it, especially if you're doing a play in it. It's just something that you need to abide by. It's like when you go to a country that you know nothing about, they have certain rules and regulations, and you kind of have to just go with the flow, so to speak. But on the whole, I think it's probably a little bit overkill for today's standards. I think it's somewhat archaic.
Well, I'll say on the sort of harmless and silly side, and then on the harmful side, I have points on both. Because as I read on, and I'll admit it, Wikipedia, they mention cleansing rituals. When the name of the play is spoken in the theater, tradition requires the person who spoke it to leave, perform traditional cleansing rituals, and be invited back in. The rituals are supposed to ward off the evil that uttering the play's name is feared to bring on. The ritual includes turning 3 times, spitting over one's left shoulder, swearing or reciting a line from another of Shakespeare's plays, Popular lines for this purpose include "Angels and ministers of grace defend us," from Hamlet. "If we shadows have offended," from A Midsummer Night's Dream. "Fair thoughts and happy hours attend on you," The Merchant of Venice. When they mention hazing, I can imagine they might enjoy having some young green guy go out, turn around, spit, say this.
Exactly.
A more elaborate cleansing ritual involves leaving the theater, spinning around, and brushing oneself off and saying Macbeth 3 times before entering again. These things I think are silly. Some production groups insist that the offender may not re-enter the theater until invited to do so. That reminds me of like True Blood and vampires and stuff.
Yeah.
Therefore making it easy to punish frequent offenders by leaving them outside. If you keep doing the Macbeth thing, they'll say, we're not going to invite you back in. But the thing I want to close on is believers have attributed the curse. It's not totally random because there have been a lot of incidents involved with this play. In early productions that were even staged by Shakespeare himself, there was an arson in 1721 by a disgruntled patron, the Astor Place riot in 1849, injuries sustained by actors in a 1937 performance at the Old Vic that starred Laurence Olivier, Diana Wynyard's 1948 accidental fall, burns suffered by Charlton Heston. And my question is the superstition acknowledging this, or is it kind of maybe a self-fulfilling prophecy? It's like people are doing this expecting to have problems and troubles, and that's when I think superstitions become harmful, when you're so afraid of number 13 or saying Macbeth at something out loud that something bad does happen because that was the impetus for it.
My feeling on that is, first of all, I feel like with everything that you just mentioned, I can draw a really clear yet transparent line between superstition and voodoo. To me, they both, a lot of what you're mentioning. I mean, even that, turning around and, scruffing yourself off, and it reminds me of certain things that happen in voodoo, which is a whole other subject matter, which I don't know a lot about, but it can be pretty scary. But my thought overall is that that we become our thoughts, so if we have a negative thought or something that is embedding us with fear, then we're going to be so in our head about it that on a whole metaphysical realm, we're breathing it in, we're thinking about it, it's a constant thought. And so we're sending that energy out there, and so then we're embodying that thought. And so 9 times out of 10, sure, we're attracting it. It's going to happen. But I think, again, it comes down to like how we approach it. If we do it in a more lighthearted way and it's kind of fun and we kind of get like tingly and laugh and think it's sort of silly, then it's something you can have fun with. But
right.
So I just think I think that maybe, as time goes on and we evolve and society evolves, I think that we, not unlike religion, things become outmoded. I just think that maybe it's time that we have a slightly different interpretation on it.
I would agree that there are some parallels to religion in that you're taught things and then you decide later the validity of it and how it applies in practical terms in your life. But, when in religion, they're trying to say saving your soul, community, this, that, and the other. Being afraid of the number 13, it just seems so random and arbitrary. Or number 17, or number 4, or any number. Why am I afraid of a number? Now, if there's a reason, other theory, see, number 13 made me hit the microphone. There's other ones that involve like full moons, and menstrual cycles and all kinds of things.
That stuff I believe in.
Yeah.
And that stuff that plays into voodoo too, supposedly, especially when it comes to the moon.
But, Shakespeare wrote many, many plays, and as far as I know, Macbeth is the only one with all this baggage attached to it. Is that true? Yes.
Yes.
Well, I want to transition into something else I think people can relate to. I want to talk about sneezing. When someone sneezes,
I love a good sneeze.
Invariably, someone will say, bless you.
Yes.
Okay. On one level, as you said, it's tradition. It's considered good manners. It's like when someone says thank you and you say you're welcome.
Yeah.
Somebody sneezes, you say bless you. But I want to talk about the origin of that tradition because it's rooted in superstition. It was believed that the act of sneezing made you vulnerable to possession by evil spirits. Oh, you could be possessed by evil spirits, bless you, okay? Or possibly that sneezing was the act of expelling the evil spirits, and if you said bless you, they couldn't get back in your body. Okay, this is like Dark Ages kind of crap. And
what about evangelists?
And our culture's still doing it. Bless you, bless you, bless you. Why are we doing it? Because of this evil spirit superstitious crap.
What about evangelists when they do the yea in the name of the Lord kind of thing on somebody's head, and they see somebody hyperventilating on the floor or having a conniption fit.
You're just determined to go there. You're going to make the religious episode, aren't you?
I'm just, I'm all about diversity.
They're parallel. Yeah, they're parallel. Yeah. But, some say that it dates back to the plague, when everyone was hypersensitive about early signs of sickness.
But it's also, but one thing I'll add to that is I think, again, getting back to the thoughts, if we are in that plane of buying what we're playing, okay? Let's just say, the world is a stage and we're the actors and what have you, which is really quite Shakespearean.
More Shakespeare, yeah.
But those evangelists, I would say 70% of what they do is they are like car salesmen. They are so good at what they do.
Performance art.
Exactly. They're selling it. They're committed. They're owning it. And they're getting everybody in the room to own it too. And so everybody is believing what they say. And then what happens to your body? You start to experience those thoughts, what you're taking on board. You start to feel different. I'm getting back to the point of the thought, the mind is a very powerful thing. So you can actually heal yourself or you can make yourself sick by the thoughts that you are plagued with in your head or that you allow to enter and circulate.
Well, speaking of, another common retort to a sneeze is Gesundheit, which simply means in German health.
Yes.
That's another one. In the Renaissance, it was believed that your heart would stop briefly as you sneezed, and bless you was like verbal support, a little prayer that the heart would not fail. Mm-hmm. So there are different traditions for it, but what I'm saying is all these things predate all of us.
Yes.
And different things perpetuate in the culture, which I think is good. Some I think are benign, but I don't really like this idea of these. It's sort of like the thing about the prohibition against eating pork because you could get trichinosis in the past if you didn't cook it well. And now that isn't really a problem anymore, people still consider, you know what I mean? In other words, the time when let's call it a superstition, originated, it doesn't apply anymore, but we perpetuate it because we keep teaching each generation, you don't want to be on the 13th floor, Timmy.
Yeah.
Why not? I don't know. I was taught you don't.
Yeah.
That concerns me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you think about Joan of Arc and how she was burned on the stakes, or, the Arthur Miller play, The Crucible, and you talk about witchcraft, you talk about, a woman who, she happened to be a woman and she was, in fact, a saint, and she died for her cause, and she had no fear, though, in the process of dying. She totally acquiesced to it, and I think kind of blew people away. I mean, it's why people kind of hero worship Joan of Arc now, because of how she was killed. Her life was taken because there was so much fear in the bishops and the hierarchy around her. Because she just stood to her ground in terms of what she believed, and they felt maybe it was premature at that stage for a woman to be that stoic about her beliefs and be able to be willing to die for them.
Yeah, unwavering faith is a powerful thing.
Exactly. But again, it gets back to the mind and the thought, and sainthood, if you were to take sainthood as a category or a topic, which I'm sure we could embark upon at some stage, it's there's people who are born who have certain beliefs, and it's almost like they've been on the planet to see those beliefs through and ultimately they have to kind of be willing to die to see them through, but they affect a change and a serious ripple in history. Mm-hmm. And I'm just, I think it's interesting how superstition can be misunderstood through that theme.
As pointing cat.
Well, it's just our last theme was misunderstandings.
Eventually, we're going to.
That's now finally my example.
We're going to have one composite program where everything comes, and we go to the end and go, well, I guess we don't need to podcast anymore. We've summarized life.
But I mean, it's yeah. I mean, I went off on a whole.
No, it's interesting though how these things do relate.
Witchcraft. I mean, let's not kid ourselves, and it's interesting how it's coming around. It's like everything that's, to me, that is important and substantial and has a sense of gravitas, where it's like it's embedded in it's supposed to be there to teach us something. It keeps coming back, and it's there to kind of teach us something. So it's interesting how all these, the Crucible, or what is it, Salem, is like it's now a show. People are interested again about seeing women bewitches, or people have been saying, you know, she's a white witch or she's an evil witch. It's like there's good voodoo, there's bad voodoo, there's good Macbeth stories where people are being lighthearted about it, and then there's really serious, over-the-top stuff where people are like, it's life or death, and it's like, come on, get over yourself kind of thing.
There are always degrees, sure. I mean, I
Yeah.
said if I wanted to be an actor and I walked into an environment and I was told, say this, and it was an easy thing to do. It's easy to not say Macbeth out loud. I say, all right, well, that's kind of what people want. I won't go there. No, that's superstitious. I shall say Macbeth. What are you going to do about it? I mean, you know, it's easy to not do it, but that one, I think, as I said, they're different. There's an element of realizing that there have been accidents related with that show. There's the things you don't know about, like, let's put on Macbeth. People will come to see that. The other show sucks that you don't think of.
Right.
And then there's the thing of the hazing thing, you know, where you can mess with somebody. Don't you know the tradition of Macbeth?
Yeah.
What have you done? Go spin around. And everybody's like, spinning around. Look at him out there. What an idiot. You know what I mean? So there's all that to it. I'm not so opposed to that one. I bring it up because it's one people can think about. But the number 13, people know. The sneezing thing, people know. And the little stamp on the end of that is in East Asian cultures, such as Chinese, Korean, and Japanese culture, there is no customary response to a sneeze. It's customary to say nothing at all.
It's funny how
Somebody sneezes and you don't say anything.
It was Horror Night, Friday the 13th, just a week ago, and I know somewhere out there people made a ton of money on the fact that it was Horror Night, you know?
Yeah,
I mean,
excellent
so
point.
there's money behind a lot of these subjects that we're talking about, even dating. It's a multi-million-dollar conglomerate business, you know, as is, you know, superstition, anything that brings fear or makes somebody scream. You know, you can go to Knott's Berry Farm and they'll make an extra $1 million that week, you know, because of that actual theme. But it's time for Tom at 20.
Tom at 20! So, my favorite version of the sort of Macbeth ritual...
To give me a heart attack.
Damn. How come that didn't happen when Dan said Macbeth? Okay. All right, fine. I'm cutting it out. Cutting it out now. Everyone stay frosty.
He's living it.
Wow, there's a ghost in here, Tom.
My favorite version of that is in Blackadder, where there are a couple of old gentlemen who are running the theater and take it very, very seriously. And so Rowan Atkinson's character, being a bit of a wag, every time he'll continually say it to taunt them, and every time he does it, they have to do the entire ritual where they spin around and spit and say the line from the other play and all of that stuff.
Right.
And so he just keeps doing it, and every time they have to do this ritual that's like 6 seconds long, and it's delightful.
Yes.
So.
I was aware of that, and the film that Olivia mentioned and a few others where it's been presented in pop culture. The Simpsons has done a thing about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Macbeth, I'm so sorry. Yeah, fantastic.
Yes, and I know you're a Shakespearean. You've mentioned Shakespeare on the past, and so I knew
Yes.
you guys would click on that one.
Definitely.
Which is one. But, you know, my feeling is it's a little odd that, you know, break a mirror, bad luck, walk under a ladder, black cat crosses your path. They kind of seem to me like relics from the Dark Ages at a time when the majority of the population was uneducated and illiterate. And it bothers me that we just perpetuate them and pass them on with no reflection. Like, that's true. If a black cat crosses your path, oh, did you break them? You know, why can't we just end the cycle and say, all right, that's not our time?
Yeah, well, I guess it comes down to whether it's useful, because as Olivia said, it's all about the power of the mind, right? And a lot of this is metaphorical. It's about what it represents to you in your head. Mm-hmm. And so if it's useful or if it's entertaining, I can see how, sure, you know, but you're right. Some of these things, they're just these weird vestigial tale of cultural memory that don't really serve any purpose.
Well, you know, some of them I understand, like if somebody says, hey, hold your horses. There was a time when people had actual horses.
Yeah.
And when you wanted them to stop, they needed to hold their
Right.
horses. And so as the car culture comes along, the phrase remains. And that's kind of cool in a way.
Yeah, no, idiom is a whole other thing because it can transcend what it originally represented. But so two things. First of all, I used to work in an office where I printed out documents and I created the serial numbers for each document I printed out. And every day we would start at 0 and we would go to wherever we were going to go to. And there was one person who I had to make sure when I delivered these documents never to deliver them the next document if the number was 666.
Yeah, I was gonna bring
because
that up
they would freak out. I tried to do it once. And this older lady was like, no, you keep that away from me. I don't want that on my desk. I don't want it anywhere near me. And she was dead serious. And I'm like, okay, then.
Yeah.
No, in fact, go shred that.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was a company I worked with the type of people on the phone would all say, "God bless you, have a great day," and I thought it was so interesting that their phone number ended in 1666. I thought, wouldn't they have asked the phone company to change it?
No. That's why they're saying the blessings. It's to cleanse the phone number.
Also, I
purify
knew
it.
some people at the Maricopa County Recorder, their document had ended in 666. It made them uncomfortable. It bothered them. They went back and asked if it could be re-recorded, and they got 999.
Wow.
It just so happened to work out that way.
So there was that, and then also in that same office, I don't know if it was just a paper thing or something, someone's perfume or whatever, but occasionally I would have a bit of a sneezing issue.
Yeah.
And I'm not one of those people who tries to hold in the sneeze.
Oh, no.
I stare into the skid. Like when sneezing first came up, Olivia, you said, "There's nothing like a good sneeze." I'm like, the kind of sneeze where it's like so powerful that it actually like cracks your spine.
Yeah, like it's like going to the acupuncturist.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the stuff. But in this environment, of course, I was trying to be polite to people, and I didn't want to freak them out and think I had a cold every day or something like that. So I would do the sneezing, and inevitably, God bless you, every time.
Yeah.
And it was just like, it got to be to the point where it made me feel very, very self-conscious.
Hailing frequencies are open, Captain.
Yeah, God bless you. In other words, we can hear you. Knock that off.
God bless you, Tom.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
And having to say thank you every time, which okay. I mean, I do because it's polite.
Can you just give me one God bless you for the day?
Yeah. I'll cash it in like a voucher. It's like, okay,
well, a couple things, two things it makes me think of. I'm okay with sneezing unless it's an allergy thing where you're just miserable. And then the other thing is some people have a weird or funny sneeze. Like they have just kind of like, or someone kind of, the people turn around like, what did you do? Yeah, there's somebody I know.
Sounds
I
like
find
a
that usually
chihuahua.
That usually, I think, and I would think this, but usually comes from the trying to hold it in. That's where you get the
Yeah, but
Oh,
that's not
no,
good for you, and
that's
it's certainly
true.
not good for the sphincter.
That's true, but I know he used to sneeze like this. Chewy! Chewy! I was like, what the hell? It's like, stocky Portuguese guy. And Chewy!
Chewy, we're home.
Right, that, and then I don't want to say her name because I work with her still, but I was at this conference and she had this, it's almost like it had a melody to it. Woo! Like, it's just like little, so there's that too. You're trying to hold it in because you have this bizarre sneeze.
Yeah.
There's that too.
So the one offshoot, the one original thing I thought I could contribute to this conversation is, we were talking a lot about codified, ritualistic sort of superstition, right? That's cultural and societal.
Yeah.
But there's also that sort of OCD, very personal superstition where certain things occur in your life and then you just sort of adopt them. Sometimes without even realizing it internally.
Yes.
And I know that we are all performers here. We've all done artistic works and performances. Has any of that ever cropped up in your life? Like, well, I wore this shirt on stage that one time, and so I had a really good show.
It's so ironically,
yes.
It's so ironic you said that because
I
have a section in my outline here that has the word obsessive compulsive in it. It's this thing I realized about myself. I was athletes are known for having before every game I do this and this and that. I eat this. Or Neil Young said he used to eat pasta and drink a certain thing at a certain time. And Peter Frampton said he wrote "Baby, I Love Your Way" and "Show Me the Way" on the same day. And he went back and tried to recreate that day a lot of times. Had the same meal, sat in the same spot. It just didn't work.
Yeah.
So that's why I was going to ask Olivia if she was going to share any particular.
I know we're all making up our own words on this.
Any
show.
particular superstition or ritual that you might have. But while you're thinking of that, the thing that ties in with Tom just said is, I do have this thing I do. I'm not even sure why I do it. It almost seems more like an obsessive compulsive thing than a superstition, but I seem to bring up the grocery store a lot. But when I go to the grocery store and I'm buying, let's say, a box of cereal or a canned good, I never take the first one. I never take the second one. I always take the third one, and I don't even know why.
Because it's been touched less.
That's one of my theories, is that somebody's more likely to pick up the first one and put it back.
Yeah.
And the second one less likely, and the third you're probably safe. That's probably why you do it.
But Daniel, if everyone feels that way,
they're all touching number 3.
They're all touching number 3 and then putting that back. And then where are you?
You're blowing
nowhere.
My mind,
that's where.
Man.
Yeah.
But the thing is, these are like things that's like popsicles in a box. It doesn't even matter. It's different if it's produce. There's something that people are touching something that's going to go in your mouth and germs and things.
Yeah.
Like, this is like.
That's why I don't buy avocados or tomatoes. Because I used to be one of those touchy-feely people that, I'm going to put the avocado, I'm going to put the tomato, see if that one's a bit too hard, that one's a bit too soft. Like, if anybody would like me at that particular point, why are you going to buy that avocado or tomato? It's got cooties on it. So get the ones in the bag.
Yeah,
is
also
what I do
apples.
now.
I mean, you see people pick up an apple and put it, I do it. Oh, this one's bruised. You put it down.
Yeah.
You see people drop it on the floor and put it back in the rack, So
Yeah.
it's like, but I'm talking about, I am picky and choosy about produce, but when I'm just grabbing a can of
Whoop-ass?
steak and potato, can of whoop-ass. Episode title. Totally mislead them. No, but, if I'm grabbing steak and potato or sirloin burger soup, what difference does it make which one? But what I do is I go, I don't want first or second, I want third. And it's probably, as you say, because I know it's probably less touched.
Yeah.
But the dude, the stocking the shelves guy touched it. So
Of course.
I'm weird. What can I say?
Yeah, no.
Do you have one of those, Tom?
Oh, I have that one.
You have the same one?
I do, and I
I
don't-
didn't even know I shared it with anyone. Brother, I found my brother.
Oh, my brother.
You have to start doing it now to be like us.
It's more common. It's like you find out. Oh, you have that dream about flying too.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know. And when I was a kid, I was full on. It was like I'd count to a certain number before I would turn off the light or something like that.
And I think when you are younger, you are susceptible more things. And if somebody says this and that, or if somebody says, "Hey, man, I don't know why it worked, but I patted my head 3 times, I spun around, and I had pitched a no-hitter," or "I met the girl of my dreams because I hopped them," and then you try it.
It's interesting the dichotomy between I'm doing this thing to ward off badness, or one day things went really well. Let's try to recreate that and go head toward the goodness. And
Yeah.
And there's a lot to be said for that too, because there is some stuff that one day it works and it is for specific reasons. There's like a formulaic approach that that happened inadvertently, and it happened but it works for you. And so I am actually one of those people where I take notice of that. If something does work, as opposed to it not working, I'm going to take notice of why, and I'm going to make a list, and I'm going to get in there and sort of do a little decode. I'm going to try and figure out the code. I mean, it's worth it, especially for somebody for me. And I think at the very least, it allows you to get a little closer to yourself and to get more familiar with just things that apply, that behoove you. It behooves you to kind of approach them differently.
being more mindful.
Yeah, and it's great that you can work that stuff out for yourself if you choose to do so, rather than a therapist. Do you know what I mean? That you pay money for. It's almost like using your mind over matter. Because I think a lot of stuff that we do, that we run into obstacles with, we give away our power so easily. It's like we can rewire our matrix. The stuff happens when we're a kid and in our early adolescence and into our early adult lives, and then we kind of get in this rut. We get into this system of doing things, and some of the stuff we outgrow it. It's not serving us anymore, and then I think I don't know. I always tend to want to encourage my friends and people that yes, we're only using such a small part of our brain anyway. If we could just stay with that theme, that there's a lot more brain power there to use, and we have the ability to continue. That's kind of why we're here, to continue to find ways that we can better serve ourselves, make our lives easier, be better people, do things that maybe aren't as complicated. So we're always walking around like, oh, I'm such a complicated person, which a lot of people seem to go, well, I'm just really complicated. And then it kind of becomes an excuse.
Well, back in the early days of this podcast, someone busted out an F. Scott Fitzgerald quote.
Yeah, that was me.
About reinvention.
You see how much I've changed in 6 months?
Well, I remember one of your early topics was you can reinvent yourself at any time. Don't be afraid to do it. Try it. Yeah, so you see this? This is, again, we're promoting self-awareness here on the show. I believe our topics are all about self-improvement. We should be billing people for
But we're all over the shop. In each topic, we cover like 50 because we just digress and we digress. But that's not a bad thing. No. We always get back to the point.
We do. And also bringing things...
And what was the initial topic?
Superstition.
Okay, so we've really... Wow, yeah.
So I would imagine that when most people think of superstition and music, they're going to think of Stevie Wonder.
Yes.
I thought playing that song would be a little too obvious and on the nose. I do have a superstition mashup with Stevie Wonder and Metallica.
Oh, love it.
That's pretty funny. But it's one of those situations where the track lasts longer than the joke does. Mm-hmm. And also, after all those hiatus mashups, I'm a little burned out on mashups at the moment. But with Stevie on the brain, I thought of another song which isn't actually a Stevie song, but it sounds so much like him that it might as well be. The band is California Transit Authority. Danny Serafine, the drummer from Chicago Transit Authority, started this band, California Transit Authority. The guitar player, Mark Bonilla, is a friend of mine and a past guest of mine. And a friend of his brought this song to the band. Wes Quave is the singer. But I like this because it's like discovering a lost Stevie Wonder song. So let's spin that.
So looking forward.
Every time I see you, I'm exalted. I wanna write you letters every day. That double rainbow ain't got nothing on you. You've done my head in, but I feel okay. Every time I think about you, several thousand times a day, I can feel this pull like a river towards the ocean. Tell me, do you feel this way? I got myself caught in a situation. I tried to lock myself inside my room. That only made it sink in that much deeper. It only makes me wanna be with you. Every time I think about you, several thousand times a day, I can feel this pull like a river towards the ocean. Tell me, do you feel this way? You could say I'm not playing fair at all. I won't even try to argue that way. 'Cause where you're concerned, my control has failed me. What more do I have to say? Every time I think about every thousand times a day, I can feel this pull like a river towards the ocean. And what else do I have to say when every what must I say? Oh, yeah, baby, tell me that you feel the same.
All right. Well, what do you think? A little bit like Stevie?
Yeah.
So the vocalist is Wes Quave. The band is California Transit Authority. The album is called Full Circle. The guitarist on that track is Mark Bonilla. I have one little extra musical thing to do before we leave. When I first told Mark I was going to do this podcast with you, he told me, well, actually, I discovered he scored one of your movies. He scored Dad's Week Off,
Oh, yeah,
the
right
Henry
on,
Winkler
yeah.
movie. And so when I told him on the podcast and that I'd seen his name, he said, yeah, your character, her name was Charisse.
Yes.
He said that he wrote a theme for her that was one of his favorite bits of original film score he's ever written.
Yeah.
And then, but then when I decided that I was going to be using a CTA track today, or I was reminded of that. I said, hey, I'm playing one of your tracks. Can you send me that thing?
Is that him singing?
No, he was the guitar player on it.
Oh, okay.
But after I decided to play some CTA, I said, can you send me that thing from that movie, that Charisse's theme? And he did. So I thought we would go out on that. A little piece of music that you inspired.
And I have no idea what it is.
It's just film score. But
I don't even remember.
No, but
yeah,
it was
I'm
a
sure I
little
will
piece
when
of
I hear it.
music that he likes the music itself, and it was inspired by you. So
Oh, nice.
seems like a nice little
How
cap.
lovely.
So we'll listen to that. We'll thank Mark for that.
Thank you, Mark.
We'll thank Tom at 20, Tom at 30, Tom at whatever number he wants to be, but not Tom at 13. Oh my
No.
God. Never Tom at 13. Not Tom at 666. Oh my God. Macbeth, drop something. That's the end of the show.
Yes.
Olivia says goodbye and we're done.
Goodbye.
Very superstitious writings on the wall. Very superstitious letters about to fall. 13-month old baby broke the looking glass. 7 years of bad luck, your good things in your past. When you believe in things that you don't understand, and you suffer. Superstition is the way. Superstition is the way. I'm your dream, I'm your eyes, I'm your pain. I'm your dream, I'm your eyes, I'm your pain, I'm your pain. You know it's to show